Welcome to Loud About Loss, the podcast that refuses to grieve in whispers. I'm Becky Hunt, author, speaker, child loss mom, cancer survivor, chronic illness warrior, and your no BS grief guide. If you're here, chances are you've known loss, or maybe you love someone who has. Either way, I'm so glad you found this space because we're talking about it all. Child loss, chronic illness, the gut punch moments life throws at you. And yep, even the big, messy, beautiful, complicated thing called faith. Nothing's off limits because, let's be honest, grief doesn't have boundaries. So why should we? So grab a coffee, grab a tissue, or the whole box, and let's dive in. Welcome to Loud About Loss, the podcast that refuses to grieve in polite whispers. I'm Becky, and that's the only time that you'll get some ASMR because I'm not into that. But I'm Becky, your fearless grief navigator, here to help you tackle the messiest, most awkward, and realist parts of loss, one unfiltered episode at a time. Today, we're diving into grief and social media, the great, the terrible, and the, oh no, did I just post that? Moments. Because let's be real, if you've ever had a breakdown in the middle of Target, there's a 95% chance you've considered tweeting about it. Don't lie, I see you. All right, let's start with the good stuff because shockingly, the internet isn't always a dumpster fire. Sometimes it actually helps. Posting about grief online can feel like cracking open a window in a suffocating room. Suddenly, you're not the only one who feels like grief is playing an endless game of whack-a-mole with your emotions. You find your people, other humans who get it. The ones who don't flinch when you casually drop the phrase, well, when my child died, ... into conversation. Because let's be honest, that's a real friendship test right there. Am I right? Maybe you connect with a fellow bereaved parent from across the world. Maybe you find a meme that finally captures how ridiculous thoughts and prayers feel when what you really need is someone to do your dishes. Maybe you just scream type in all caps and someone in the void yells back, same. That's the magic of social media. You don't have to grieve alone. I remember one time posting about feeling completely gutted in my child's birthday. Within minutes, I had messages from people I never met, but who shared the same pain. One woman sent me a virtual hug in the form of a ridiculous, funny GIF, and somehow, for the first time that day, I laughed. Social media can be an actual lifeline. And here's some of the bad part about social media and grief. Everyone has an opinion, even when you don't ask for it. Dear listener, for every kind and supportive comment, there's always that person. You know the one, the grief police who show up in your DMs like, isn't it time to move on? The toxic positivity enthusiast dropping a casual, everything happens for a reason. As if that phrase doesn't make you want to launch your phone into the sun. Or my personal favorite, the unsolicited advice giver who has never lost a single thing in their life, but is now an expert in your grief. Have you tried drinking more water? I heard hydration really helps with sadness. Oh, thank you, Karen. I had no idea that my existential despair could be cured with a hydro flask and a dream. Look, Sharing grief only means opening yourself up to a lot of opinions. Some helpful, some aggressively not. Navigating unwanted advice. So, how do you handle these people? I've got a few go-to responses, and I want to share them with you. That's an interesting perspective. Thanks for sharing. Translation, I'm ignoring you. Right? Here's another one. Grief isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. Translation, your timeline is not my timeline. Here's another one. I appreciate your concern, but I'm just sharing, not asking for solutions. Translation, shh. Quiet. Zap it. So we're talking the good, the bad. Here's the ugly part of social media and grief. Grief trolls, emotional vampires, and the pressure to perform. And then, of course, there's the part that makes you want to eat. Okay, that's something that my 11-year-old and my husband say all the time. Yeet. I don't know. I don't know if this applies to that, but I'm going to use it. Yeet your phone into the nearest body of water. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to use yeet again, but chuck your phone into the nearest body of water. Just chucking it into the pond, the lake nearby, the the pool, whatever. Just get rid of it. The grief trolls. Yeah, they do exist. The people who make it their life's mission to be the absolute worst. You're just looking for attention. Yes, Karen, I did, in fact, lose my loved one just so I could farm likes on Instagram. It's the only reason. Oh my gosh. Yeet! Okay, maybe it's a little bit fun. Number 2, the emotional vampires. These are the people who live for your sadness. They don't want you to heal. They are jealous of you. They don't want you to have good days because they thrive on trauma content. If you post something hopeful, silence. But if you post something devastating, oh, suddenly they're all up in your comments like, sending love, stay broken so I can feel better about my life. And number 3, the pressure to perform grief. Do you ever feel like you had to make your grief Instagrammable? Like, oops, I cried in my car, but it wasn't aesthetic enough for my story. Better add a moody filter and a cryptic song lyric. Social media can make grief feel like something we have to package perfectly. Like we need to be the right kind of sad. Messy, but not messy. Vulnerable, but still digestible. It's exhausting and unnecessary. And there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. Boundaries and self-preservation. If you feel like social media is making your grief worse, here are some things that you should try that I've tried. Mute or unfollow accounts that make you feel pressured or judged. Number 2, take a break from social media if the noise becomes overwhelming. I have gone through spurts on social media where I've just deleted it off my phone. Like I didn't delete my account because I knew that I would eventually want to come back because I have this dream of speaking on stages all over the world. So I knew that I would need social media for my future career. So taking a break, I've done it for months at a time. I've also gone a full week or weeks, or I've not done the full year. I've anticipated doing a full year. Like last year I was like, I want to delete all social media off of my phone for like a full year. I want to commit to a full year. And it wasn't a full year. I couldn't do it. I was burnt out at one point, and I just decided I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this right now. I don't have the energy. I don't have the creativity. So I just deleted it off my phone. And periodically I would like check on, Instagram and Facebook on my computer laptop for like messages that I would get from people. And that was really the only time that I would log on. And taking a break put life back into me. The imposter syndrome disappeared, and I felt more in tune with myself, with my emotions, with my life, with my kids. Like my focus just completely changed. Not having social media on my phone and not having that pressure to post every day and being consistent with it like Instagram tells us to. Because to be honest with you, that leads to burnout. And through these times where I've taken breaks off of social media, I've learned that consistency can be different for every single person. It can be posting once a week or posting just when you feel like posting or just hanging out in your Instagram stories or whatever. I've been on the social media space for years. I did multi-level marketing for, I don't know, something like 7-8 years, and with different companies. And there was this big major pressure to post consistently, and because that was the only way that you could sell. That was social selling. And that was the only way to make a living, make money. And so I got really good at it. And as a video editor for other accounts, I have clients that I edit all of their social media video content, and like I've done this for years, and I love it. I love it because I know that I'm really good at it and I enjoy it. But sometimes when you're making it for yourself, it can get so exhausting and your creativity can just go out the window and just fly away and say goodbye. And it can just become overwhelming. So taking a break can mean different, timelines, timeframes for everyone. I've always come back with this excitement to create and this excitement to just connect with people. The good side of social media, the community side, the finding your people side. But what I've also learned from taking a break is that you can curate your space. You can only follow pages. You can choose to only follow pages and people who make you feel understood. I have deleted so many accounts on my Instagram. Like I've done this recently, hundreds that I've unfollowed. And I do not feel bad about it because as I'm, scrolling through my Instagram feed and something pops up that it just doesn't resonate with me anymore and it used to, I've just unfollowed. And that's okay. Don't feel bad about it. Because if that stirs up something that just doesn't feel good, doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel genuine, unfollow. It's okay. Here's the last question I wanted to end with. So, should you share your grief online? And I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear in the comments Do you think you should share your grief online? Should it have a space? Should it have a place? Here's the thing. Your grief, your rules. If posting helps you, do it. If it drains you, step back. If someone tells you how to grieve on your own page, remind them where the block button is. Okay, social media is a tool. Use it how you need to. Whether that means writing long, raw captions or lurking in grief forums without saying a word and just being a fly on the wall, it's all valid. Hey friend, grief is heavy, especially when it's the loss of a child. It's messy, unpredictable, and let's be honest, sometimes it just sucks. That's exactly why I created the Grief Relief Journal for Child Loss, a free resource to help you put words to the ache, process the impossible, and find even the smallest moments of relief. This journal isn't about fixing your grief because, let's be real, that's not how this works. It's about giving you a space to be exactly where you are, raw, real, and unfiltered. And the best part? It's completely free. Just grab the link in the show notes and download it today because your grief deserves to be heard, not hushed. So I'm actually looking at my Instagram and the accounts that I follow, and I wanted to share with you some and highlight some of the incredible grief spaces online that are doing it right. This account, strength_for_recovery, Angela, is someone that I'm new to following, and I love how raw and bold and open she is. She gets a lot of hate, and she talks about that hate, the negative comments that we've talked about in this podcast, and she is a powerhouse. I love following her, so go follow her. Another one, that grieving_girl. She has the most beautiful accent, and I love how she shares her loss story with her daughter, Indy. Another one of my friends, her account is Orange AF Mama. And I love her screen name because AF, we all know what this means. I'm not going to say it because I don't use those words. But what I found out about her is her name is Amanda and her last name starts with F. So it's actually her initials. But she talks about juniper, and the color orange, and I just love her heart. I actually met her at another mom who wrote a memoir, and it was at her book launch party, and I met Amanda in person, but like her story was so familiar to me. I'm like, I feel like I know her already. And I did. I was following her on Instagram like this whole time. And she doesn't live that far away from me, like an hour away from me. And we actually made a date this week because it's spring break for all of our kids. So we're meeting this Thursday for like the first time, just meeting us and all of our kids at a community center. And I'm so excited about it. And one of the things that I'm gonna actually write this down to talk about this in another podcast. Finding friends, making new friends when you're a lost mom, because this is freaking hard. I mean, it's already hard enough to be an adult, a grown adult, and finding new friendships, good friendships, friends that are willing to take the time, make the time for your friends, your friendships. And this is something that actually I'm going to share something with you that I shared with my husband earlier today. This is something vulnerable. I feel kind of goofy for saying this, but it's the truth. It's the truth. So I told my husband, I'm starting this new podcast. And I had a podcast before. The platform that I was hosting it on, it actually no longer exists. So I lost all access to this podcast. Like, I don't even know how to sign in anymore because the platform doesn't exist. So I just said, whatever, screw it. I'm just going to start a new podcast. So here we are. But I wanted to start up a podcast again because I want to invite guests, other mothers that have lost their children, on to talk about their story. And part of the reason that I wanted to do this was because I feel like it can be a great way to make new friends. Please don't laugh at me. But that is like a huge goal of mine, to make friends that get it. And so I feel like I'm on this little experimental journey with my podcast to see how this goes, to see where this goes. I feel like this has to do with what we're talking about today, social media and grief, because I feel like the only way to make friends, to find new people that have experienced what I've experienced and get it, the only way to find those people is online, on social media. And so I hope that this podcast brings me new friends. And I have an amazing best friend that lives in Florida. She used to live in Minnesota, and I hired her as a doula for my daughter Amelia for my second birth. And she actually very, very fast, very swiftly became, it's a strange way to say it, but she quickly became my best friend. And she is still to this day my best friend, even though she lives thousands and thousands of miles away. And I only see her once a year, and it's actually been over a year since I've seen her in person. But she has had loss, and she gave birth to her son, Macklin, stillbirth. And she started a nonprofit, just like I started a nonprofit. And we have so much in common, but she's also that person that, she's that one person that really gets it, that I can be completely open and vulnerable to. And I'm so thankful for her. But I also need some local friends. So here's to finding new friendships on social media. I want to know what your experience with grief and social media is. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Have you posted something at 2 a.m. and regretted it immediately? No judgment. We've all been there. Write a comment below on this podcast, or slide into my DMs, send me an email, or shout it into the void. I want to hear from you. And if you like this episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Rate and review, and let's keep getting loud about loss. Until next time, friend, keep grieving however the heck you want. All right, friends, that's a wrap for today. Remember, grief isn't quiet, and you don't have to be either. Your story, your loss, your healing, it all matters. And if no one's told you today, you're doing better than you think. If you got something out of this episode, share it with a friend, leave a review, or just scream into the void. I'll probably hear you. And if you want to connect, slide into my DMs or find me at beckyhunt.net. Until next time, keep grieving, keep growing, and keep getting loud about loss.